Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to a new edition of Newsroom Live. I'm Mohammed Abdurrahim, and tonight's edition will be dedicated to the presidential elections, so stay tuned for a full recap of all of the events that took place over the last 3 consecutive days of voting, the voting that ended on this Tuesday at 9 p.m. here in Egypt. We'll also have more news from occupied Palestine, news from the economic world, and also sports segments here in Newsroom Live, so please stay with us. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a meeting on Tuesday with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Major General Abbas Kamel, the head of the General Intelligence, and Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources Hani Swela. Presidential spokesperson Ahmed Fahmy said during the meeting President al-Sisi followed up on developments in cooperation activities in the field of irrigation and water resources with the Nile Basin countries. This cooperation is regarding rainwater harvesting tanks and underground drinking water stations, as well as waterway purification projects. During the meeting, President al-Sisi stressed that cooperation with Nile Basin countries represented one of the most important constants of joint Egyptian-African work. This cooperation contributes to the implementation of joint development projects which are of mutual benefit to the African continent. And Egyptians across the nation cast their ballots in the 2024 presidential election. Polling stations were set nationwide to choose a leader from among 4 presidential hopefuls for a new 6-year term.
Polling stations received voters from Sunday morning till Tuesday night for 3 consecutive days for Egyptians to cast their ballots in the 2024 presidential elections. A large turnout was reported in all polling stations across the country, denoting their citizens' keenness on electing the leader in a new patriotic epic towards continued construction and development path of their new republic. Some 65 million citizens were eligible to vote in the elections that ran from October 10th until October 12th. 4 candidates vied for Egypt's top post, namely Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, head of the Egyptian Democratic Social Party, Farid Zahran, head of Al-Wafd Party, Abdel Sanad Jamema, and head of People's Republican Party, Hazem Omar. The elections were held in 11,631 polling stations in 9,376 constituencies distributed on schools, youth centers, and healthcare units. Some 15,000 judges supervised the vote, which was monitored by about 62 civil society organizations, in addition to missions from nearly 14 regional and international institutions. According to State Information Service, approximately 528 international correspondents are participating in the media coverage, representing 115 international media channels, newspapers, news agencies, and websites from 33 countries.
And we are joined now over the phone by Dr. Amani Hola, political analyst. A very good evening to you, Dr. Amani. Thank you for joining us. And as the voting process has come to an end after 3 days, how do you see the electoral process as a whole, Dr. Amani?
Actually, I can congratulate the Egyptians for the very nice and elegant democratic wedding, proving that Egyptians are one hand and one heart, even if they have any discrepancies or having different opinions, but in the crisis time, they are one hand and aiming the same target.
Right. Dr. Ameni, the National Election Authority, the judiciary, and various ministries entrusted with organizing the elections collaborated to make sure the three-day process was a success. How did you see that?
We cannot judge from our own opinion. Let's look at the others' opinions, especially in this occasion. We have more than 14 foreign organizations observing the election, and more than 24 embassies and 67 diplomats. All of them were observing, and no one, not even one negative remark about the election, including important organizations like the African Union Commission, regional organizations, different regional organizations. So we can feel happy that we succeeded in this exam.
Right, and Dr. Ameni, Egypt held the elections under full judiciary supervision. So how did this shape the process?
We are trying to make everything as perfect as possible. So the presence of more than 15,000 judges in all the stations and committees makes everything observed and feeling trustful and transparency with the process of election.
Right. Dr. Ameni, how did you see the turnout as a whole, especially women participation, participation of the elderly, and also the youth? I mean, how did you see the participation in general, the turnout in general in the elections?
When you look to the variety of people, starting from the young age youth to the elderly people, you will feel that the awareness of this nation you can bet on. They have very sensitive reaction towards the crisis. They understand the conspiracy around us and how we have to deal with it.
Right. And women participation especially has been, a mark in Egyptian elections over the course of the past few years. Your take on that specifically?
We cannot ignore the role of the women, starting from all the important political events in the last decade. Of course, we can recognize that they are around all the time, even taking with them their kids who used to wave with the flag, feeling that we have a celebration.
Yes, two final questions. One about the media coverage. How did you see the role of the media in the elections?
I think it was very good coverage, especially with the distribution all over the country, not concentrating on the main cities only. And also, I have to mention something very important, that there was a very good volunteer work around helping people and advising them, even helping them with the discovering their numbers, registration. All the details of the process were very good organized. Also, the update of the numbers of voters was very recent, just last month, which gives the best results I think we have never seen before.
Right, indeed a great role for the volunteers, as you mentioned, Dr. Ameni. They had a big positive influence in the process, the volunteers, and we all thank them. And finally, the overall mood of the elections, because it seemed, it looked like celebratory in many occasions. So how did you see the overall mood of the elections?
I think we succeeded in this exam, and we have to turn the page and we started a new challenge. We have many challenges in front of us, and this election used to postpone many things. But now it's a good step has been done, and of course we are waiting for the results, and then we have to move forward for the next challenges, and I hope we will succeed.
Yes, of course. Vote counting has already started in some polling stations, and the official results will be on December the 18th. Thank you very much, Dr. Amani Hola, a political commentator, for your time. Now, dear viewers, we proceed with the news items that we have here in our newsroom live program. As the presidential election, as we were speaking, was indeed held under full judiciary supervision and was followed up by non-governmental organizations and international media. Egyptian voters across the nation voted in the elections with a huge turnout and lined up in front of polling stations on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Polling centers were set up nationwide to choose a president for a new 6-year term. The National Election Authority was keen to offer all facilitations for the elderly and people with special needs, the differently abled, to practice their constitutional right in voting. This is in addition to the bribe voting cards for people with visual impairments. The NEA, the National Elections Authority, also offered services for citizens to vote from other governorates. 65 million Egyptians were eligible to vote, and they were to cast their ballots at 11,631 subcommittees inside 9,376 main polling centers nationwide. And contesting the election were President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, alongside Farid Zahran, the head of the Egyptian Democratic Social Party, Abdel Sanad Yamama, the head of the Al-Wafd Party, and Hazem Omar, the head of the People's Republican Party. Still with the elections, the head of the executive board of the National Election Authority, Councillor Ahmed Binderi, said that the voting process wrapped up after the third and last day of the presidential election across the Republic on Tuesday evening. Binderi was speaking at a press conference on the voting process as a whole. The details.
Head of the Executive Board of the National Election Authority, Councillor Ahmed Binderi, said voting process proceeded with discipline on the third and last day of presidential election across the Republic. He called on all eligible voters to take part in what he termed the important constitutional right to build the future. The Operation Chamber of the Coordination Committee of Parties' youth leaders and politicians continue following up voting in the presidential elections for the third day nationwide. The Operation Center witnessed heavy turnout in the presidential election as well as smoothly movement of the electoral process without any violation. The committee has some 20,000 volunteers in addition to its members to make sure the National Election Authority's regulations have been applied. Meanwhile, security bodies continue their measures nationwide to secure the operation of voting for the third and final day in presidential elections. Security officials and commanders also continue securing the locations of polling stations to make sure of the organizing of the vote process and offer all facilitations for voters. This comes from the Interior Ministry's keenness to provide a secured atmosphere for the citizens and face any attempts that may affect the voting process or the security, according to the directives of Interior Minister Mahmoud Tawfiq.
Welcome back. And with us now, dear viewers, over the phone is Ambassador Midhat Al-Maligi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. A very good evening to you, Ambassador Al-Maligi, and thank you for joining us. And sir, today was the third and final day of the voting in the presidential elections here in Egypt. So what can you tell us about the process that you saw over 3 days?
Well, actually, I personally went the first day of the elections. I wanted to make sure to secure my place in the elections and cast my vote in due time. So I did this the first day. However, I was expecting that the last day would be a little bit more than usual, since people want to get their chance. They couldn't do it the first 2 days, and they were happy that there is a third day where they could cast their vote. What I want to say is that what I saw actually reassured me of the real sense of responsibility of the Egyptian people, because lots of people were expecting that the turnout of the election will be with a weak representation of the general public, but we saw the other way around. I mean, until the last hour of the election today, and we've seen people very much concerned about being present and electing their candidate or their favorite candidate in this place.
Right.
However, what I want to say is that of course, we have to to understand that the current situation, the sensitivity of the delicacy of the moment in our country made lots of people want to make sure that they share their opinion with others and select the candidate of their choice. This is very important because we are going to have a president who are going to navigate with us through the hard times that we are going to see in the next 6 years. And it was quite important for the people to choose the right person for them.
Right. So a sense of responsibility shown by the Egyptian nation, as you mentioned, Ambassador Maligi. I wanted to ask you, as you put it, I wanted to ask you specifically about women participation, which looked like, you know, a high participation, and it seems to be the trend in Egypt in the past few years.
Well, actually, yes. I mean, ever since the new republic, as we call it, emerged, and we've seen larger participation of women, of elderly people, of people that used to who were not really enthusiastic about participating, that those parts of the society and these segments of the society are keen now to participate in the election. And actually, not just that, but they are actually inciting others to come and vote. And I have seen this in many elections before, and this time even more. And I want to say that the sense of responsibility have always been higher in women. We have to admit that women are more responsible. When it comes to the delicate moment, you'll find the women in the lead and encouraging the rest of the family, whether their husbands, their children, to participate. We've seen elderly people who can't even walk, but they insisted on participating on this. The young generations that 6 years ago were still young, and now they find their opportunity to participate, as well as the mature ones in the society. So everybody had a reason to participate. But I think the most important thing was the delicacy of the moment. If we look around us, whether we are talking in the East, of course, we are all talking about the Palestinian issue and how it affected us. Everybody is concerned about when this massacre is going to stop, when these war crimes are going to stop.
Yes.
And from the West, we have unrest in Libya. So also this is another source of worry. And in the South Sudan also is not in its best shape. So, I mean, if you look around us, we will find that this is not the only oasis of security and democracy in the region. And it's important that we bring the favorite candidate in his place with a secured majority. It's not just about electing a president, it's about showing the world that we are having his back and that we are supporting him to lead us to get out of this turmoil. We are having problems externally and internally. Of course, nobody can deny that we are suffering from economic problems. But I think that the vote of the people, of the public, will show exactly which ones the people trust more to lead us for the next 6 years.
Yes, and Ambassador Al-Maliki, as we can see, you know, from the videos and the pictures, and as we also, the mood was celebratory around polling stations and for those who went to cast their ballots. So from one side, as you put it, you know, Egyptians went out because of a sense of responsibility, but at the same time, it was a celebratory mood. So how can you explain that?
Well, before 2011, we didn't have real presidential election per se. I mean, it wasn't a multi-candidate elections. We didn't have this in a clear form as we can have it today. And this is one of the benefits of democracy that we are living in today. So you have more than one candidate, not just another one or another two. We have 4 candidates in a row. And you have the right to choose whoever. There is security in the electoral stand. So, I mean, you have judges everywhere, and you feel that your voice counts. Your voice has a meaning, at least to you. So, and I think that this is something important that people are happy to feel it. And from this come, I think, the festive mood, especially that when you ask around, and this is what Egyptians usually do, who did you vote for? Did you vote for this or for that? So when the people find that their favorite candidate was elected by someone else, they feel joy that he is not the only one who is thinking of this man to become the next president. And this gives more of a relaxed feeling for the people, although that there was no vacation giving or anything. Actually, I know a lot of people who had to wait until the last minute because they couldn't leave early their job so that they could come and vote. So although the government did not do anything extra or anything over to push people to come and vote, but people with, as I said since the beginning, that this sense of responsibility is the only thing that incited people to go and vote.
All right. So on that note, on behalf of you, dear viewers, we thank very much Ambassador Midhat Al-Maliki, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Egyptian women did indeed show a remarkable participation in the presidential elections. Women went out with their families holding the Egyptian flag to show their great role in building the future of the homeland. Polling stations nationwide also witnessed a great turnout also from the elderly and the youth to cast their ballots in the presidential elections. The youth turnout in the voting showed their awareness and insistence to participate to determine the future of their nation. Elders and people with special needs, the differently abled, also were keen to go for voting along the 3 days of the elections with youth from political parties and volunteers helping them to reach their polling stations. And security bodies continued their measures nationwide to secure the operation of voting for the 3rd and final day in the presidential elections. Security officials and commanders also continued securing the locations of polling stations to make sure of the organization of the voting process and to offer all facilitations for voters. This comes from the Interior Ministry's keenness to provide a secured atmosphere for the citizens and to face any attempts that may affect the voting process or the security, according to the directives of Interior Minister Mahmoud Tawfiq. The Arab League Secretary General had voted in the presidential elections in the Al-Rashid primary school on Tuesday. Ahmed Abul Ghait asserted in comments to reporters that the momentum of the Egyptian presidential elections and the remarkable participation conveyed a clear message to the world. Abul Ghait reiterated that Egypt is totally keen to continue establishing security, stability, and development. And the Operation Chamber of the Coordination Committee of the party's youth leaders and politicians continued the following up of the voting process in the presidential elections. The committee had some 20,000 volunteers in addition to its members to make sure the National Election Authority's regulations were applied. stations across the country closed on Tuesday after the end of the third day of the 2024 presidential elections, as in this very special edition of Newsroom Live here on Nile TV International. We're focusing on the elections. Stations in the three-day elections witnessed a big turnout nationwide, especially from youth and women to cast their ballots in the elections. The Operation Chamber of the Coordination Committee of Parties, Youth Leaders and Politicians continue to follow up voting that witnessed a heavy turnout and smooth movement of the electoral process without any violation. We are seeing now the polling stations that had closed at 9 p.m. Here in Cairo on the third and final day of the elections, and vote counting is taking place in some polling stations. You know that the official results will be announced on the 18th of December. 65 million Egyptians were eligible to cast their ballots at 11,631 subcommittees inside 9,376 main polling centers nationwide to choose a new president for a new 6-year term. And the contesting candidates were President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Farid Zahran, the head of the Egyptian Democratic Social Party, Abdel Sanad Yamama, the head of Al-Wafd Party, and Hazem Omar, the head of the People's Republican Party. Now, head of the executive board of the National Election Authority, Councillor Ahmed bin Deri, had said that the voting process proceeded with discipline on the third and last day of the presidential elections, just like the first 2 days across Egypt. In the meantime, security bodies continued with their measures nationwide to secure the operation, and the Operation Chamber of the Coordination Committee of Parties, Youth Leaders and Politicians continued following up the voting in the elections that witnessed a heavy turnout as well as a smooth movement of the electoral process without any violations. In the meantime, the security bodies continued their measures to secure the process through securing locations of polling stations and to make sure of the organization of the voting process and to offer all facilitations for voters. The elections were held under full supervision of the judiciary. And also the full judicial supervision was a mark in these elections. Again, a high women participation. And also the state had invited international monitors and members of diplomatic missions, as well as civil society groups to observe the elections and the voting process that took place across Sunday, Monday and Tuesday here in Egypt. So vote counting is beginning in some polling stations, and the official results will be announced on the 18th of December.